The following podcast may be explicit. One Joe Young presents Adventures from the Shed, a tabletop RPG podcast. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com. Kurt and Joe are back as Game Master and Player, continuing this adventure of Cthulhu Confidential One-2-One from Pelgrane Press. Dex has had a busy couple days gathering information, and he's far from done. Grab your spot at the table and enjoy the podcast.
Hey, this is Kurt. Welcome back to the Shed for Adventures from the Shed. You can find us at adventuresfromtheshed.com. We're in all those places you would want to find us. Facebook, Twitter.
And I sat there wondering why the guy hadn't mentioned iTunes yet.
iTunes. Listen, I'm in the middle of this intense noir adventure here with the one Joe Young. Just one-on-one playing the gumshoe system in Cthulhu Confidential. And if you're enjoying it, I would really like you to go to iTunes and give us a good review. Because that will help people find us. We don't need it for our ego, although it's nice. But we want people to listen. If they like role-playing games, Adventures from the Shed is for them.
Heck yeah. And I am Joe, and I am playing the character part, the player character part of our game, which, again, is the Pelgrane Press Trail of Cthulhu Confidential One-2-One. Did I get all that in there? That's
right. And for people at home who may have forgotten, we are playing this on pre-release. I pre-ordered the game. I think it's $49 plus tax from the Pelgrane Press website. Guys, they do awesome games. We have played Trail of Cthulhu here on Adventure from the Shed.
It was our 2016 Halloween episode. Check it out if you haven't.
Correct. I own the hardback of Night's Black Agents and a couple of the other related books. That's an awesome game for kind of detective, spy, vampire stuff. They just do great work. So if you have not played anything from Pelgrane Press, check them out. This is the new game that's going to be releasing, we hope, in the next month or two. If you pre-order, they give you the PDF immediately. They tell you it's not final, it's beta, but man, it's good, and that's what we're playing.
We are playing off of the PDF, and we can't wait to get the hardcover in. Really enjoyed the hardcover for Trail of Cthulhu. Kurt and I worked a lot on that adventure for our Halloween episode, so definitely check that out. This one's going great, and let's just jump right back in and give you a recap of the last session. If memory serves, we started off leaving the Deacon Manor. I went out and checked on that tail. Turns out it was some kraut named Franz.
Franz Spielman.
Franz Spielberg. Yeah, he's not too savory a character, but couldn't get much from him. We then went on to talk to... Now I got to remember. I'm flipping through my notebook.
Well, you went back to bed.
Yeah, I went back to take a rest, wake up in the morning, then went off to see Ginny to bring her that camisole and the information for blood work for the family, see what she could find for me. And then I went off to Mr. Franz's house there, the guest house, where he stayed with, I can't remember Greta's last name, but Greta
Odemar.
Greta Odemar. He's staying in the guest house there, and she actually helped me root around the place, get some information. Turns out that she doesn't like Franz too much, and she wants him offed.
Yeah, I was going to say, not like is an understatement.
Yeah. Not sure I'm ready to take that step yet, but Mickey might do that sometime. Was it Mickey?
Yeah, Mickey Cohen.
Cohen. I can't remember the last name. Mickey. I could see Mickey smiling as he broke Franz's legs. But after that, I went to visit Madame Eva, see if she could give me some more information about this. Everything is on a separate page here because it's a small notebook. About this Argent Light lady, Clara Nebel. So, after finding the key to the safe deposit box in the desk drawer of the guest house, I decided I'm going to go down there next. And maybe on the way, on the way out of the bank, I'll pass by the police precinct and see if Len Pollard can give me an address for this Nebel lady.
All right, that all sounds like a plan. And, since you mentioned Mickey again, I guess I'll just throw out there, you are a streetwise detective who has his ear to the ground. Heck, and his soul's on the pavement. So you totally know who Mickey Cohen is, and you know what the scene is with the underworld in L.A., and I don't want to...
Mickey's a relatively new gangster. He's got no like for the Germans there, Nazis.
Yeah, but what's important is Mickey's from the East Coast. He's not an L.A. guy. So you know about the whole scene here in L.A. and how it's kind of run by the syndicate and some of the gangsters here who but there's been a move in and this is kind of an undercurrent that you may or may not play out depending on how the adventure goes, but there are some forces from the East who are basically trying to move into L.A. to challenge the forces that generally run the L.A. Underground. And they're headed by Ben Siegel, who you know as Bugsy Siegel. And Mickey Cohen is a young gun who works for Bugsy, or for Ben.
And when you say the East, you mean like South Carolina, right?
Oh, he's from like Alabama, so
he came straight from the upstate.
Right. So that's a little bit behind the scenes of something that you would know that's going on. That,
all right.
It's not directly necessarily important, but the fact that Mickey is here and he's not a right hand man, but he's an underling of Ben Siegel, and that's something you would know. But you had said you wanted to start by going off and checking out the safe deposit box.
I'm going to flip that key over a couple times in my hand, let the midday light glint off of it.
Right, and so for people at home, Dex, one of his skills on his character sheet is accounting. Yeah. So it's in game terms, it's his accounting knowledge that has told him, and I mentioned this last episode, but that this is a key that opens a safe deposit box at Security First National Bank, which is located down in LA's Spring Street Financial District. So, some time has passed. Dex has taken care of other things that were more pressing, and now he's got a little break because he knows the Alegria doesn't open until at least dinner time, and it won't even be hopping until later. So he wants to go and check this out. So he's actually got time, so I think he might take a little bit of a stroll. I mean, it's probably 2 miles from where he is, but that's only half an hour, 40 minutes for him. Unless you tell me otherwise, he doesn't want to waste Johnny here. Yeah,
he'll definitely, everywhere he can reach downtown, he'll walk. Because he has to keep his, as you put, he keeps his souls on the street. But that also means that he is not in the underground, but in order to keep in contact and know who's who and which strings to pull at the right times and which notes to play on the symphony that is the underworld, he needs to be on the street. So he'll definitely spend time on the street.
Well, and that's exactly right. So as you do this walk, Dex is making a point of when he passes a pharmacy, Wilbur's Pharmacy, which is where he always meets his friend Ted, because Ted, for some reason, likes to meet it there. He makes sure he waves at the owner, and when he passes the barber shop, where he gets his haircut, he says, "Hey," pops in. So he's doing his PI thing, keeping his connections as he strolls.
Exactly.
But long story short, he gets down to Security First National Bank, and he's already got the key, so this is no big deal. He just, goes up and I presume asks the teller to let him access the box.
Yeah, that's it.
So really nothing to it. He requests the box number that is on the key, which is 4199. He waits 2 or 3 minutes. The cute young teller brings him the box. He kind of pushes it aside, moves it aside from her so that she won't see what's in the box, and just buys himself just a little bit of privacy on the shelf, puts the key in, and turns it to open the box.
Yep.
And how does Dex feel as he prepares to open the safe deposit box?
I'm a little nervous about what I'd find inside. If this guy, Franz, carries a knife regularly, who knows what he's got in here. But it's also likely that he's got Greta's pictures in here that are he's using a blackmailer so that he can rent that house.
Right. So when you do actually open the box, as perhaps expected, you find a number of explicit photographic negatives and photographs. The first set that Dex pulls from the box, he looks at and he sees Greta with her must be former girlfriend back in Berlin, and they are in state of undress, doing things that Dex perhaps knows that women sometimes do, but that would not be considered normal
in the
and socially
30s,
acceptable for the time. And all of a sudden he realizes perhaps why Franz is able to stay in the guest house on such favorable terms.
So I turned my head over my shoulder and told the teller, I'm going to need 5 minutes in a tissue.
Right. So he's got these pictures of Greta and her girlfriend in sapphic embrace, and he looks at them perhaps a bit longer than he should. And then he puts them face down aside, and he goes on down to what's below them. And next he finds kind of similarly voyeuristic images of Helen and Marshall Daly. Okay. Marshall, as we previously noted, is a very good-looking man, and in these photos, he's not only a very good-looking man, but a very large and impressive man. And Helen is not looking very ladylike in these photos with him, although she does seem to be having a very good time.
Okay. porno soundtrack in the background, right?
So Dex turns those over and puts them on top of the images.
So far, it's just been pictures in the safe deposit box.
Right. And so the next set, and by the way, so there are negatives, but there are also prints of these, and so you're looking at the prints. And the next images are actually of Helen leaving what looks like a hotel. You would know it as kind of a middle class hotel with a person that you don't recognize, but he's like a mousy looking little man, and just doesn't look to you like the kind of man you would expect Helen to be with.
Okay.
And then there are some other sets of 3 or 4 other kind of what you would consider lower rung Hollywood types, like B-movie actresses and actors, but no one that's of particular interest to you.
Okay. Joe is finding this curious. I don't know if it's something specific to the story, but I wonder who's taking a picture of this broad as she's walking out of a hotel. This is the kind of picture a private eye would take.
Right. I mean, they're in Spielman's box, and he's told you that he's a freelance reporter, and he goes tailing people. So you imagine it's probably him
sense.
taking the photos, but you're not sure.
It had slipped my mind for a moment that he was a writer.
So, and you also know from the letters that he's working with the German propaganda ministry and trying to get dirt on people that they find impressive. Now they're looking for Charlie Chaplin, and he's getting Greta Odemar, which is maybe why they're unhappy with him.
That could be. She's a small fry.
Right. But coming out of it, you've now got the photos that Greta is concerned about, and
the negatives.
And the negatives.
Yeah. Which is damn important in the 30s.
Photos of Helen with Marshall, which, to be honest, is no news to you. But then you've also got Helen leaving a motel with some random-looking kind of mousy little dude.
So I only want to leave the pictures of the B-movie actors, but I want to take the rest.
Okay.
It's my safe deposit box as far as the teller knows, so it's up to me what I take and leave.
All right. And based on our prior conversation from last episode, you suspect that Greta, if you wanted to shake her down, would probably pay you something for those photos.
Yeah.
Or you could give them to her, or you could hold them for yourself. It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
And that's all there is in that box.
As I placed the photos of the German woman in my trench coat, I realized that I could get some money from her, but I'd also be willing to give them to her for free if she didn't want to offer any money.
All right. That's totally up to you. And depends on how you feel about your money situation at the moment that you decide to deal with it.
Exactly.
So,
it'll start with what's it worth to you.
Right. From game terms, should you take the money from her, you can probably counter your broke problem with that alone. But you're also presumably countering that if you solve the case with Margaret. So you should play that the way Dex would play it.
That's his number one priority. Find the problem, or find the solution to the problem he was presented with.
Right. So now you're done at the bank. You've got this cute little teller who takes the box back from you. And where do you go from here?
From here, I'm going to stop by the precinct. Beat feet over a couple of blocks. Go into the precinct and find Sergeant Len Pollard. Len's going to give me the address for where I can find this Nebel lady.
Yeah. So Len, Sergeant Pollard, he's the guy that you go to when you don't want to bother Ted. Ted's much higher up the food chain. You save him for special favors and for bigger fish. And you feel a little dirty dealing with Len. There's something about him you don't like, but he's helpful. And he has no problem telling you very quickly that Clara Nebel can be found at 9 Loma Linda Avenue in Hollywood.
Okay. That's a chapel over there.
Yeah, it's kind of a bungalow over there. That's where she works from.
All right, well, it's time to go out and flag down Johnny. We're going to take the cab over to the chapel because that's a bit of a walk.
All right, it is a bit of a walk, so Johnny is always happy.
We're probably mid-afternoon or so now, and still nice out.
And in the back of his mind, Dex is saying, boy, wouldn't it be great if I just had a telephone that fit in my pocket and I could call Johnny whenever I needed him. But
Dex twists his wrist and looks at his Apple Watch and calls an Uber over to find his ride at the chapel.
One way or another, his trusted and faithful servant, Johnny, shows up with a cab.
Johnny. Now, the way you were describing it earlier, Kurt, I can imagine that during his walk, And while he was making all his friends, Johnny probably passed once or twice, and he just waved him on and probably told him, I'll need your help in an hour or two or something like that. So, yeah,
Sounds
we
good.
do that.
Yeah, and your time at the bank did not take very long, so it's still, early afternoon, maybe 2-ish, something like that. Yep. You want to go to the casino in the back of your mind, but it ain't even worth thinking about going there till 6 or 7 at the earliest. So you got plenty of time, and you want to go find out what you can learn about the Order of the Argent Light.
Yep. Time to go see this Clara Nebel character.
All right. So Johnny picks you up. Mr. Raymond, where are we going today?
We're going to 9 Loma Linda Ave. There's a chapel over there, and there's a lady in there that's got some information for me.
Baby, well, I'm happy to take you there. You want me to wait, or you want me to just drop you?
I think you could drop me on this one. I might need a few minutes.
All righty. He has Dex get in the back, eases onto the pedal nice and slow, and pulls away. And it's not too long before they pull up at.
Now, I have been both tailed and been the tailor. He's a tailor. During this adventure so far.
Yep.
So during the ride, I couldn't help shake the feeling that someone might be behind us, so I kept looking out the rear window.
Awesome. So you look out. Roll a quick test on
Filch.
what?
Filch. I'm going to try and steal a look out of the back window. Get it?
Just roll me a d6. And
a d6 with a 2 on it.
I was just going to say.
Don't roll a 2.
But for a 1.
All right.
So you don't see anyone following you here, nothing unusual.
Yeah.
And then after a few minutes, Johnny pulls up in front of a chapel that's kind of a Pueblo-style bungalow. It's on Loma Linda. Nothing particularly ominous or unusual about the place, and you pop out of the cab, thank him for his time, throw him a coin, and unless you tell me otherwise, you pop on up to the front door.
Yeah, we're just going to go right up there. I've got no reason to be secretive with this lady. I don't even know her yet.
Yeah, so you knock at the door.
Yep.
And the doors.
Do you have any signs on the outside? It's not like Madame Eva's palm reading done here.
It doesn't have a really cheesy feel to it.
Right.
It actually just looks kind of like really just kind of like a Pueblo style bungalow, really. When she opens the door, though, the woman, presumably Clara Nebel, is very confident, kind of a big personality, not a big frame, but a big personality. She's done up in a kind of very middle-aged, glamorous style, so she's got kind of an attractive robe on, and she actually has a headdress, almost like a turban, but not a cheesy fortune teller turban, almost like a classy, what a rich woman would expect a spiritual healer to look like.
Good point. Okay.
So
she's playing the part of somebody that has rich clientele.
That's exactly right. So she feels to you immediately much more serious than Madame Eva would, but that doesn't mean she is more serious than Madame Eva is.
Pardon me, Clara Nebel, I presume.
Yes, I am, and you are?
I am Dex Raymond. I'm here to ask you a few questions about a case I'm working on.
About a case? Well, that's most intriguing. I don't know that I can help you, but why don't you come in? We can perhaps have a cup of tea or a drink.
Well, there's plenty of mystery involved and a couple of oddities I can't explain yet, so I was hoping you might be able to help out.
Well, now, what kind of investigator are you, Mr. Raymond?
Well, I'm a private investigator, a PI. I take all kinds of cases. This one is a little odd. After we sit down to wherever she's bringing us.
Well, Mr. Raymond, the world and the universe are very odd. There are many things beyond our belief and beyond our knowledge, of which we do not know, but which you could learn if you were so inclined.
Yeah, it's something I might. But in the meantime, let's see what information that you might be able to help me with to crack this case I'm working on.
Well, I'll see what I can do, but my time is quite valuable, so I trust you'll be efficient if you would.
Not at all. If somebody knocks on the door, don't worry. You can go on to one of your regular clients.
Okay. What can I do to help you, Mr. Raymond?
So he'll describe the beginning of the case where the woman came by, said her sister had the problems, etc. But we'll get to the point of the name of the Order of the Argent Light and Clara Nebel's come up a couple of times here. And this poor young girl, she had just disappeared, came back, mumbling about things here and there, and the name has come up a few times. And I'm hoping you might help me understand why she would be using your name and that Argent Light thing.
Have you told her who the girl is?
No. No specific names yet, but if she asks, I'll say it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're not secretive about what the order is, and I'm more than happy to tell you about what we believe here at the Order of the Argent Light, but without knowing of whom you speak, I can't tell you why she would be speaking of us.
Would this story have been enough news that she would recognize it as I was recounting it? Because, like I said, I have no problem giving her the name. I just didn't know if she would catch some glimmer of it.
Probably not. I think the family would have kept it relatively quiet.
So my employer is the Deacon family.
Ah, the Deacon.
So you may have heard
must be
of
speaking of Helen.
Helen, yeah.
Ah.
So you know the girl.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Helen joined the Argent Order about 2 years ago.
Okay. And at this point, Dex will take out the black book and start making some notes, so she would see him doing that in case that bothers her.
Right. Well, no, it doesn't bother me. I'm very open about our order, and there's nothing secret here, nothing of which I would be ashamed.
She's proud of all of her secrets.
So, Helen, she joined us about 2 years ago, I would say, and she came in with some other silly girls, but really only Helen stuck around. The rest of them came to a few meetings and never came again. To be frank, until she found the order, Helen, the poor girl, she just couldn't find a place for herself. I think, I don't know that she would agree with me, but I think she was spiritually dislocated from herself because of the death of her mother.
She seemed to kind of drift a bit from what I heard of her family.
Yeah, I think with her mother dying and then her father becoming the gambling wastrel that he's become has really been a crushing blow to her. And I think that what we offered her here at the Order was a way to understand that her father's depredations and the loss of her mother are just part of the larger plan for the universe and the chaos that we can find and the darkness that we seek to avoid falling into.
Larger plan?
Oh, this is hard to understand if you've not been indoctrinated into the Order, but at a basic level, it's important to understand our core tenets, which, as I said, they may seem odd to someone who's uninitiated, but there are secret masters that rule the world, and they are connected to the silver light of Nodens, who's the benign force of the cosmos. The violence, the confusion of the modern life, it arises from the actions of dark races who conspire with ancient deities, and they plague, plunge mankind into an eternal dark age. It's only by empowering the secret masters with resources that we can restore our planet.
Pardon me, resources. What resources would you supply a secret master?
Well, I mean, time is incredibly important, but money is also required in order to fund the work of these secret masters, in order to prevent the world from being plunged into chaos, so that we can fight and the forces of entropy can be banished. That's why we must open everyone's awareness to the ardent light. Now, of course, people who've been open to the light have to support us with generous donations. One cannot do good in the world with only good intentions.
I have to agree with that, although intentions are important.
They are important, but they alone, they cannot solve this problem.
So what, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of resources was Helen Deacon providing your secret masters?
Well,
by the way, if it weren't obvious enough, I'm just going to play along with the whole thing. And in game world, picture that camera over Dex's shoulder, and he's writing batshit crazy in the book,
right,
but playing along with her at the same time.
Right. Well, Helen, I mean, she was very drawn to the Order. As I said, her life was in chaos. Her father was a wastrel, is gambling away his fortune. And perhaps to compensate for that weakness, her father, she's been drawn to older men with the resolve that her father, Roscoe, used to have. And that's how she ended up with horrible people like Whitey Alexander. But she always had a dark cloud hanging over her. And shortly before her disappearance, Helen asked me to read her aura. And I did so, and I detected the spore of an ancient, gnawing evil. It was on her. It was something she'd walked over. It was like just evil in aura around her. I also had a vision of a great lever. It was like once alive, but now it was stilled. It was not clear what it was, but it was a still lever. And I offered at that point to conduct a protective rite for Helen as a ritual. And I told her that would require financial support for the organization and for our masters. And she had said that she wanted to do that and that she wanted to proceed. But at that point, she was unable to donate to the order.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying, perhaps Helen got this spore and tripped a lever, and now she's kind of not aware of what's going on around her. She's, I saw the girl. She's kind of lost, although she's got, and I'm thinking, picture this, that Dex has, like, with all the stuff that she just said, kind of doesn't faze him. It's just, crock of bull. But when he thinks back to the look on Helen's face, even though he was skeptical and cold-blooded about it, there was something there, something that it caused a problem in game terms. When he mentions it, he probably has a little shiver or something that she would notice. But he would say, yeah, and so when I saw the ghost, this look in her eye, there was something beyond there. Because he's trying to placate her as well.
You're right, Mr. Raymond. I mean, this is serious matter. This is not hocus pocus like you would get down on Hollywood Avenue. She had a clear aura of evil around her. The lever, I do not know what it was. There was a lever. I saw an image of it. It was once moving, but it was now stilled. I got that sense. I truly don't know what that was. But there was something truly wrong with her. And I wanted to protect her. But she did not bring payment. And to be frank, I think it was her tight-fisted, hard-nosed sister who prevented her from doing that. And perhaps, it's unfortunate that she wasn't able to have that ritual done, and perhaps that was somehow indirectly a cause of what has happened. And if that is the case, then I truly regret that. So
Dex at this point, although was listening to all of the secret masters and the plan for the universe and Nodens and all this stuff, was just, it kind of flew past him. He didn't really give a darn. When he starts talking about how Helen fell into trouble because she couldn't pay, he's looking to see now, like watching Clara Nebel's mannerisms, and did she have something to do with it? It's like the, shame, you got nice legs there. Shame if something were to happen to him, right? You got to pay me and nothing will happen. Right. He's getting this feeling that she's shaking people down, and when they don't pay, does she make something bad happen to them?
Right.
So he's trying to read her.
Yeah, so you don't get that sense at all. You get a sense of not deep regret, but perhaps of regret that something bad has happened to her, but not that she was the cause of it.
Okay. So can you tell me the kind of thing that you would have done to protect her if she had ponied up the bills?
Oh, well, I mean, I have a protective ritual that would have cleansed her aura and offered the protection of Nodens from these evil deities or these other forces that might be...
So ritual, like something, you say some Latin words over a cracker and it turns into the body of a first century Jew or something?
Are you mocking me, Mr. Raymond?
I'm kind of curious what kind of ritual you're talking about.
We have rituals that come to us from the masters, texts that have been written by them, including, I can tell from your conversation that you're interested. Surely you know of some of them. One of them lives at least part of the year right here in L.A. I know personally the well-known author William Dudley Pelley. He is one of our masters. He wrote about his near-death experience that he had in 1928. You may have known this is a well-regarded book. He talks about how he entered the presence of God and Christ, and they bestowed mystical powers on him and urgently laid out a plan for him to combat the dark forces. But it wasn't God and Christ that Mr. Pelley met. It was Nodens. He just couldn't talk about Nodens because the world would think that he was crazy. So he had to couch this in Christian terms. But Mr. Pelley met Nodens and spoke with him, and he has transmitted knowledge of that that benign force to us, and we use that to help combat the evil forces of Yig and Shub-Niggurath and these evil deities who seek to plunge the world into chaos.
So, who do you think got their hooks into Helen?
Well,
or perhaps what?
I mean, I certainly have no idea who got their hooks into them, but as I said, she spent time with older men, and Whitey Alexander is the worst of them. And Dex knows, because of the world he lives in, that Whitey Alexander is a key gangster in the LA underworld, and runs the Alegria Casino, the rug joint, the illegal casino that he intends to run later tonight, and is a prominent figure in the underworld.
I remember I was going to be visiting the Alegria later. I'm going to have to pay Whitey a visit.
Right, but she doesn't imply that Whitey did this, just that was a bad connection for her. And she really doesn't know anything more about what happened, but at this point, because Dex has seemed at least somewhat agreeable.
Well, he's trying to play along, and he's using the words that she uses to show that he's paying attention and interested.
So at this point,
although he isn't, and she's batshit crazy.
Right. Yeah. So at this point, Clara really she begs. She says to him, she says, "Mr. Raymond, you must let me see Helen. You must get me in to see her. She has suffered a mystical injury. She cannot be healed by the doctrines of blind science. I can heal her, but her sister will not let me see her."
Well, I tell you, Ms. Neville, we're not going to be able to get in to see her anytime soon, but if I can figure out what caused this to happen to her, then it's likely that we'll be able to see her again. So once I can figure out who started all this, then I'm sure we can get in to see her.
But she's catatonic. Her life is ruined. I can heal her. If you let me see her, I can heal her.
They've currently got her protected in the Deacon Manor. I'm sure she's okay for now. But if there's something I can do to get you in there, and inside his head he's doing the circle around the ear thing that she's cuckoo. If there's something I can do to help you get in there to see her, I assure you I will.
Well, I would ask you to remember this, because the family, they do not trust me. They do not like me. I know that Margaret, she is a very practical, very stubborn woman from the little bit that I've seen, but there is no one else here that can heal her. She will remain her life as a vegetable.
Well, I'm sure you understand, regardless of the truth of the matter, if you talk about secret masters and plans for the universe, people aren't going to want you to visit their sick sister.
Well, the Order of the Argent Light exists to help people see the truth. And while they might prefer to hear strange tales of their God who dies on the cross and lives in 3 persons and is raised from the dead, the truth is that Nodens is all that protects us from the violence and the vast blackness that seeks to devour us.
Yeah, if you think there isn't a lot of violence out here, you haven't been downtown lately.
So,
and that's a joking thing to her, not to to piss her off.
Right. So, I think at that point, Clara would certainly offer to pour him another cup of tea, to tell him anything more he wants to know about the Order. Mm-hmm. But he has found out most of what he will find.
I would say for the story's sake, he would hang around for another cup of tea, whether it bears him any more information or not. But it's really out of curiosity. Dex, because he thinks she's full of crap, he wants to see if she can keep up the facade for another cup of tea.
Right.
And that's really what I'm looking for out of it, that she doesn't just break down at some point like Madame Eva does regularly and say, it's all bullshit.
Right. So she would say, I'm happy to, let me just put on another pot. In the meantime, why don't you just look around our bookshop and give me 5 minutes and I'll be back.
Right. And inside his head, Dex was saying, I was planning to take a look around the joint if another customer showed up, so this was a perfect opportunity as she went out to get that kettle whistling again.
So while you're strolling around, there's a very small kind of bookshop, and literally they sell like bookmarks and paperweights, but there's also a bookshelf, and you notice as you're looking without any real effort that most of the books that are prominently displayed are written by William Dudley Pelley. And in fact, you pick a
Okay.
few of them off the shelves and you kind of open them and you notice that they're even signed with his name. Some of them are just signed with his name, and some of them say inscribed a particular, to Clara,
Okay.
Sincerely, W.D. Pelly. And she comes back, she brings some tea, you guys sit, you chat, and after, 5 or 10 minutes, she's, is there anything else that I can help you with, Mr. Raymond?
No, Miss. I think that'll be all for today. Thank you.
Well, if I can be of further service, I would be happy to speak with you. Anything I could do to help Helen, I would sincerely like to do. And if you could get me to see her, I really do think everyone would benefit from it.
I appreciate the sentiment, and although Margaret might not be as open, I'm sure if there's anything I can do to help you, I will.
Excellent. Well, I will see
play
you
Margaret as the bad cop.
Right. So.
All right. I was just thinking about this. There probably isn't a way for me to call Johnny. Would they have radios in cabs back then? I don't think so.
No, but Johnny knows you.
Yeah, he'd show back up sooner or later.
And so I'll just point out that,
Yeah.
the key there, not to metagame too much, but is what is Helen's connection to Whitey Alexander?
Right. And also as that sidebar piece where I'd already heard about Pelly, now to hear that Pelly met Nodens, and he's essentially this Clara Nebel's savior of some type or another, and he's autographing books to her. That's kind of cool for her, but what does that actually mean when he's got this inside connection to the fascist regime as well?
Exactly. And that's right. So you've got Pelly, and then you've got you've got some connection to Alexander, who runs the casino, and Helen had chips from the casino in her clutch, but had a viscerally negative reaction to them. So, so that's where we stand. What would you like to do next?
All right. I think the next step here, as Johnny pulled up and I got in the cab, I let him know to head back downtown so I could talk to Ginny about the evidence she may have found. It's right near the end of the day. Still a little bit early for casino doings now.
Okay.
Casino doings.
Right. So at this point, you've been walking, you've been strolling, you've been talking with Ms. Clara Nebel. It is late afternoon, and you go back to see Ginny and says, Ginny, I hope it's not too early to see what you found out.
I want to,
Bring her some
as is the habit, well, I bring Ginny something. In this case, I'll bring her, I keep thinking of like New York, Chicago, whatever. Bring her a couple of cannolis or something because it's getting near dinner time. She always works late. She's probably going to be hungry. Ginny, I brought you a little something to snack on. What'd you find for me?
Awesome. And she appreciates that. She's a workaholic. She's almost always at the office, so she's glad to have that. And she says, well, actually, the blood work was easy. It's not hers. I don't know whose it is, but it's very clearly not her blood type.
Does it match any of the information I brought you?
It doesn't. It's just, I don't know where it's from, but it's not Helen's blood.
All right.
Which you already suspected, I suspect.
Yeah.
Now, the photos are a little more interesting.
In his head, Max says, I'm tempted to show her the look of the photos I picked up from the safe deposit box, but this isn't the kind of thing Ginny would appreciate. I'm hoping she didn't put that kind of photo together from the ashes.
Well, so she says, here's what I found, and they're not perfect, but you can clearly see Helen and some older man ducking into a room together at this kind of fancy-looking establishment.
Is the older man kind of a squirrely dude? Is he the same guy from the picture at the hotel?
He is not. In fact,
different guy.
He's a different guy, and as you look at the picture with Jenny, you're kind of looking at it together. Yeah. It is definitely not the mousy, short man that you saw earlier. This is Whitey Alexander.
So when we get the magnifying glass over that spot, his face comes into view very clearly.
Right, so you see Helen and Whitey ducking into a fancy establishment, and you know that the fancy establishment is his rug joint, the Allegria.
Okay. And is that all you were able to get out of that mesh of ashes?
That's the photo. That's what it is.
All right.
It doesn't mean anything to me. I hope it means something to you.
Are you able to figure out when a picture like this was taken? I don't know if this kind of thing is You're the whiz, Jenny. I bring you food, you give me information.
Well, and I appreciate that, but I can't tell. I can't tell from that.
All right.
Pretty girl, though.
Yeah, it's a shame she's lost her marbles.
Really?
Yeah, I'd take a minute to describe to her what happened after Helen was recovered. And,
it's the same girl. I didn't realize this.
Yeah.
So this is the girl whose camisole we were looking at.
Yeah. Now I'm going to have to go get a blood sample from Whitey. Don't envy me the task.
So you know that Whitey runs the casino and other establishments for the higher up, basically the boss of the L.A. kind of crime syndicate, Guy McAfee.
I don't have that name written down yet, although I know Dex knows it.
You don't, but you know he's the top. He's basically, in 1937, he's the top of the gangland pyramid in L.A. He actually, for what it's worth, it's not necessarily important, but he used to be a vice cop. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of gone bad, and he runs illegal operations here, and Whitey works under him. So presumably he is running the casino and probably other operations and kicking that money up to Guy.
So he's running the mob in the area, running the underworld.
Correct.
And his name is McAfee. Those who anybody else who's in IT or understands the irony of McAfee actually infesting something rather than cleaning it. It's an antivirus software. Yeah.
You also know that McAfee is not someone that you would just be like, I'm going to go see Guy McAfee now.
Yeah.
Like, he's not on your radar.
You got to make an appointment with a guy who knows a guy who can get you to pass a note to Guy.
Exactly. So what I've been calling the syndicate, or some people call the system.
Yes, actually, they make a point of that in there, that Dex did not want to be part of the system.
Right. So basically, Guy runs that. He's got a few people under him, and you know, at a high level, although you don't know the details of what's happening, that, as I mentioned earlier, there's a challenge coming from the East Coast. Mm-hmm. Ben Siegel and his people are basically trying to move into L.A. This was tried like 10 years ago with the Capones and ultimately failed. But Bugsy, Ben Siegel, is perhaps more determined, and he's come in with kind of his number one goon, Mickey Cohen, and their people. And we don't know how, but he's trying to make some play on what's happening in L.A. So this is all stuff that you would know that doesn't require any research or any investigation. This is just the background of the world.
So chances are Guy McAfee has no love for Mickey Cohen.
Correct. Yeah. And the reason I'm telling you this now as an aside is because you've now heard about Whitey a few times, and so this is just stuff that you would know instinctively.
Yep. All right. Well, after finishing up at the lab, I didn't have anything new for Jenny. No, I think we're done there. Thank her. Make sure she's had her snack, and don't work too late, Jenny. Although I know you will.
Right. So at this point, you've learned a little bit about Helen having some type of relationship with Whitey Alexander, or at least it appears something. You've learned something about her from Clara about her father being a gambling addict or being destitute from gambling. So it's totally up to you how you want to proceed. You could talk to Margaret, you could head to the Alegria, or you could follow another clue.
I think I want to make a quick stop at the Deacon Manor to ask Margaret if I was missing any blood information, medical information for any of the immediate family, because I'm having conflicting reports from the lab. That's the way I want to word it to her.
Okay.
So, I mean, unless you want to draw the scene out, that's really what I'm going to her for.
You knock at the door, the butler lets you in, eventually Margaret comes down after
it was Mr. Butterworth, I think.
That sounds good.
Or Wheat Thin or something.
Yeah, Wheatcroft, right?
Yeah, it was Wheat Thin, yeah.
You know, she looks stunning as always. I think she was wearing green the first time you met her, but today she has a nice burgundy.
Yeah, I couldn't lie. I was just making up reasons to come visit.
She says, I mean, I'm not hiding anything with respect to the blood. It is what it is.
No, I'm not looking to see if you were hiding anything, Ms. Deacon. I was just trying to make sure I had all the information I could have, because there's a little discrepancy at the lab of whether this matches anything you've given me or not.
Yeah. No, I mean, Helen's records and her blood type. And,
All right.
Nothing more to tell there.
Have you had anything new on your side? I've got a lot of leads I'm following, just so you know I'm definitely on the case.
Well, what have you found that would be interesting?
There's some of the connections that you had told me about. I'm learning a little bit more, like that Argent Light kind of. He rolls his eyes in front of her to show her his disdain for that order as well. But the Argent Light, that kind of goofy thing going on there.
I don't
but
understand
there's a
how
couple of connections with the casino, which you're familiar with. She had the casino chips, so.
Well, what have you learned about that?
That's where I'm headed next. I wanted to stop by here before I head to the Alegria.
Well, do you know anyone there?
Everyone knows somebody there, but I'm going to go ask around a few names and see if maybe I can get some information from, like Johnny Two Fingers or maybe Whitey Alexander or maybe Billy the Bomb.
Well,
I'll make sure I throw out more than one name. So,
well, Mr. Raymond, if you are heading to Alegria, perhaps I should tell you a little bit more about my sister and my father's situation.
Are they in debt?
No.
Am I going to run into problems when I mention the deacon name?
Well, this is it's a bit embarrassing and a bit untoward and not something I like to talk about, but my father was a very strict Lutheran. He worked very, very hard his whole life. The family firm in his younger years, he really didn't have a lot of fun. And when Mother died, he really changed. He just decided he'd worked hard enough, as I told you, and he announced that he would hand the firm over to us. It was very unexpected. What I perhaps did not tell you is that as soon as he handed the firm over, he spent almost all of his time at gambling joints. He really was enjoying the adolescence and the teenage years that perhaps he had missed because of his upbringing. He got very in debt to the casino owner, Whitey Alexander, such that I feared his life was in danger. These are not the type of men to whom you want to owe significant sums, and this was maybe six or 7 months ago. I went and I paid off his debts. But I warned him that I would not be responsible for them any further or for any further trouble that he got himself into, and that the company had a fiduciary responsibility to live up to its shareholders and to earn money for them, not for his gambling debts. We could not become a bottomless piggy bank for his moral failures. He told me at the time that he learned his lesson and that he's only been gambling amounts that he can afford to lose, but well, that's what he told me.
Seems like he's got a little problem. Is he still frequenting the Alegria?
Well, I don't know for certain. It's certainly not a place that I frequent, but I'd be lying if I said I believed him that he has it under control.
Have you heard from anyone about any new debt?
No, not directly.
All right.
But I
Now,
know my sister was somehow involved with things there, and I don't know how, and I don't know why, but I think it was probably related to something with my father.
all right. I just want to make sure you understand, Ms. Deacon, that in order for me to help you, you've got to give me all the information you have. It would have been useful, perhaps, if you had given me this before. Is there anything else now that could help out?
No, I fear my father may be in over his head, but I have no basis for that knowledge other than a daughter's concern.
Anyone who spends time at the Alegria is in over their head.
So that's all I know for certain. And I fear that somehow my sister perhaps tried to help him, and perhaps that is somehow related to the trouble she's found. But again, I know nothing more than that. It's just a suspicion.
All right. Is she being honest that...
Yeah,
that's
no reason to think she's not telling you.
Okay. I guess at that point, I will thank her for her time and move on to the casino.
Okay. So at this point, sun's going down.
Yes.
Evening is upon us.
Definitely want to arrive after the early bird special finishes because,
I think that's a good call. So So Dex kills some time. Maybe he goes to a coffee shop
Yeah.
or has a beer at the local bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's got to be O'Malley's. That place run by O'Malley. He's a good friend, and make sure he gets a good stout in before he heads over to the casino.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just for you, by way of background, Dex would know before he heads out there a couple of things. You know, he knows, as we've already talked about, that Whitey Alexander runs the joint. He answers to the system or the syndicate, which is the old line kind of Anglo mob that runs the joint. Guy McAfee's the boss. LAPD's been paid to look the other way, so it operates almost freely. And Whitey has a reputation as a mobster that you can depend on to treat you right. So, you need to be lining his pockets, not standing between him and his profit margin. But as far as these guys go, he's a stand-up mobster.
Okay. Now, Whitey wouldn't have anything to do with Mickey Cohen. He's old school, and Mickey's the new.
Correct.
All
yeah,
right.
they're totally opposite sides of the sword.
Yeah, then I can't get him to break some German's legs. All right.
No. Now, you have an opportunity here if you want to spend a streetwise push to have a pre-established, respectful relationship with Whitey. You definitely don't have to, but it's an option, depending on how you want to play Dex.
No. Dex dislikes the system too much to be too friendly with any of them.
Okay. All right. Well, you get Johnny, got a bit of a drive over to the casino, which is located not very far from like Warner's, Universal, Disney Studios in Burbank. And when you pull up, it's like a sprawling ranch-style house, and excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It opens only after supper. You're actually getting there, let's say, 9 o'clock?
Probably,
somewhere around there. It is a swank joint.
Yeah.
This is a classy establishment. You park the car with a valet, or actually, I take that back. You're with a cab, so you're not going to have a valet. You're going to get dropped off, but you see cars being parked with the valet. Mm-hmm. You come up in front. You walk in. Literally, as you walk in, you pass Chico Marx, who's one of the Marx brothers.
Nice.
And he's kind of, in a friendly tone, grousing about the losses that he's had as he's flirting with the hat check girl. So on the way in, you've got a place you can leave your hat and your coat.
Oh yeah, I would definitely leave the hat there, so I would catch that conversation. Yeah.
Right. So literally, Chico's there. He's trying to charm her, so he's using his trademark character's Italian accent. Yeah. And there is a kind of a sultry.
It's me, Chico.
It's me, Mario.
Yeah.
So, off as you walk into the main room in the corner, there's a small stage with kind of a chanteuse in a slinky silk evening gown. She's singing Cole Porter's in the still of the night, and the room is exciting and bubbling, and you actually see Bing Crosby nodding appreciatively as he throws dice at the craps table. And so you've got Bing Crosby in his suit, and then there's multiple craps tables with dice rolling down, smacking off the back walls, and people cheering as 7s and 11s are hit. There's 2 or 3 roulette wheels that are spinning, and you hear the ball bouncing around, pling, 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 and then generally a sigh of disappointment, but occasionally a cheer when the roulette wheel stops. So at this point, you have kind of walked into the room. You stop, you look around, you see all of this. You also notice that security is noticeably tighter than the prior times that you've been to the Alegria. Okay. It's not oppressive, but you definitely notice more well-dressed, I don't want to say thugs, but muscle than you would have noticed on a previous visit.
All right.
And you notice that just because of your kind of streetwise skills. So at this point, kind of tell me what you do when you come into the room.
Well, Dex would have had his hat checked.
And what's he wearing at this point?
His regular 3-piece looking suit. He still hasn't had time to freshen up, so or hasn't taken the time to freshen up. So he's still looking like he's wearing yesterday's clothes, but not too bad. Someone would have to pay attention to him to notice it.
Does he look noticeably poor in the swank joint? Or
No. I mean, I would think it's a fully varied crowd. There's going to be people who can just barely afford the cover and the people who don't even care about what money they're losing while they're there. So he's probably right in the middle.
Okay. Also, I'm not sure if I asked this before, and it's not necessarily relevant, but is Dex armed?
I would have to think, knowing where he's going, there are two different ways to look at this. If he were caught unarmed, it might be seen as a sign of weakness, and if he were caught armed, it might be seen as a sign of aggression. He is armed.
With what?
He would have a 38. It
Okay.
just makes sense for the time, I would think. But it would be an ankle holster or calf on the calf, not that low.
Awesome.
And that would just be not his normal sidearm. It would be what he would bring if he were going into a mob joint.
Okay.
That's what he has. And if anyone, this has happened in the past, if anyone goes to frisk him, he tells him there's a pistol at my ankle. Right.
Okay.
So
Good.
they
Which
know.
they would understand.
Yeah.
So, awesome. I'll just tell you, had you made the Streetwise push earlier,
Yeah.
you would know one or two of the dealers who would be able to basically connect you in to see Whitey if that's what you want to do, or make similar connections.
Yeah.
You chose not to do that, which is totally fine.
Well, I'm
But
going
as
to
it
find
is-
a connection.
I was going to say, so as it is, you're just a dude in the casino,
Yep.
kind of walking around. But since you're here, I'm going to ask you, you've been here for a little while walking around. There's
Yep.
all this excitement. I need you to make a cool check.
Cool check. I have one die for cool, so let's see how that works out. I'm going to use this
7+ on the advance, 3 or less on the setback.
one. 3.
3. All right, so
Hold on. I can take a problem to roll another die, can't I?
you can take an extra prob.
Let's do that. I don't think I have enough problems. Because I don't think I have anything else on my edges that can help me. Just as a, you know what? I might actually be able to do this. But before we get too far into that, let's recount, because it's been a couple of episodes now when we started the game, or from when we started the game. One of the cool things about the Cthulhu Confidential One-to-One system are these cards that you have, the GM has, excuse me, and they're part of the adventure itself. So within the adventure we're playing, the different scenes we have the options to have an edge, to get something extra out of them, or to bring on a new problem for your character, which is, as it sounds, makes something more difficult for your character.
Correct.
And with that, one of the things you can do is when you're faced with a check where you have to roll, you can incur another problem, bring another problem onto your character in order to try and succeed with that roll. And it's something I was thinking of doing. One of the things I'm looking at, though, Kurt, is I have edge number 1, which is self-possessed, which gives me an extra die on a cool or stability.
Oh, if you want
So I could actually use an edge.
you could, for sure.
Because that makes me have to incur a problem later if I have the same situation. But for here, definitely Dex is in control of himself in this situation, so he would have this there. He would use the edge to bring in another die, so we'll do that. And I will roll this one, and let's see what adds to the 3, a 6. So that's a 9.
Awesome. So this is
So
super
I will
interesting.
cash
game
in that
terms,
edge.
because if Joe did not use that edge, I'm just gonna. Can we meta?
Yeah, go for it. We were just describing the rule, so it's a good chance to give the expose.
So what we're
of that.
doing here is we're kind of figuring out how Dex Raymond dealt with the temptation of the gambling tables. And
Yeah,
if he
he's broke.
succeeds,
He's broke.
Well, exactly. So
Yeah.
if he succeeds with an advance, which he just did, because of the extra roll, the advance is gambling is for suckers, and you're not a sucker. So you watch the other fiends set their money on fire and wait patiently to talk to Whitey. Gain edge 1, self-possessed.
That's the one I just cashed in.
Right. So what
I use it to get it
So
back.
you
That's
can't
kinda
actually
cool.
gain it. But had you failed, which I think you were at a 3.
I was going to fail. Yeah.
All right. So if you failed and did not take the extra problem, it would have said a few hands couldn't hurt, could they? But before you know it, you're in the hole for more than you can afford.
Yep.
Gain a problem, gambling debt, which would make sense for someone with a broke back, with a
Yep.
broke background to have a gambling debt, right?
Yeah.
Or you could take the extra problem, which was tempted, which says resisting that old vice of yours took more out of you than you'd prefer to admit. And the thing there is, until you take time to indulge this or another weakness, you take a -2 penalty on all cool and stability checks. So the way this game works, like at the end of the day, none of them are mission critical, but it's neat.
It's flavor. It's great.
And you don't necessarily always want to win every roll, because you might say, you know what? Me losing this one would make sense for my broke character.
I was ready to take that problem, but I had already described. I felt I had described it as Dex is walking in here and he's going to be paying attention to what's going on, and to all of a sudden to break down, that just didn't feel right.
Right. So
I took that cool.
So Joe
added
played
the die.
Edge 1, self-possessed, and now he's been very consistent in dealing with Margaret and dealing with Helen and in dealing with the tables. He's basically been a cold motherfucker every time.
Trying.
And
Heck
so,
yeah.
it's up to Joe how hard Dex is working to be this cool, or whether he just is cool.
I think in the next time that happens, we're going to find out how hard he's working at it, because I don't have any bonuses.
Well, and it's interesting, if we played this character over multiple games, like maybe he's broke because he's like the super nice guy who's always doing stuff that he shouldn't be doing for free.
At the end of this case, he might not take the money.
Like, who knows?
Yeah.
So I think this is really interesting in game terms. But I tell you what, he just avoided the temptation of the tables. He's looking around. This is clearly a scene here in the Allegria. Things are jumping off. The girls are singing. The cats are dancing. And this is going to be the place to be. And I think it might be a good place to pick up in our next episode.
I agree.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. Hey, Adventures from the Shed at adventuresfromtheshed.com. We hope you'll keep listening. We hope you'll rate us on iTunes. And in the meantime, we'll say bye-bye.
Bye.
The preceding podcast was brought to you by One Joe Young. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com.